Yo, what in the world, man? All right, so I was streaming the Vanguard Alpha, and then we see this news on Twitter. Crimsix gone, Vivid gone. Not to mention, we're talking a little bit about the eUnited potential addition to the CDL and a lot more. So we got to talk about Rostermania, and that's what we're doing today. So it's kind of an emergency video post tonight. I was planning on just playing the Alpha all night, but we had to make this thing happen. So, all right, let's start where we start. Crim is gone. So let's transition over to that screen so we can record, check out Twitter here. So Crim posted restricted free agent for 2022. And then we had all the replies, people going nuts. Not even the pros knew. I think Parasite somewhere down here tweeted that he had like known about it. Basically, it was like a mind blown situation. I'm not sure where that is, but basically he tweeted like a mind blown emoji an hour ago, and then he was like, there it is. And so Crim is off of the Empire. Then Vivid posted that he is off the Empire. Looking forward to the second half of the year. Looking forward to the future. Thanks for the second half of the year. So we got all that down here as well. And then Hastro confirmed it, as well, saying we're switching up a bit for 2022 and didn't want to delay or risk opportunities for both Crim and Vivid. Crim is special. Everyone already knows that. Vivid got his start and proved he has what it takes. I'm going to deeply miss both of them on Empire. So there's no world where there's like a Crim could be coming back situation. That's not happening. They're gone. So, I mean, absolutely crazy. He replied as well, even though we finished first and third in the past two CDL World Championships, we can't become complacent in fixing issues regarding our team dynamic. No move is certain to work out, but I really hope this one does. I care pretty deeply for these guys. So that is some pretty massive news for those two. And then I tweeted out, give me your best guess for where Crim and Vivid are going to end up. So we're going to be talking about the potential options for these two players before we talk about eUnited potentially joining the CDL. Actually, honestly, let's talk about that first, because then we can talk about that as well. So the big news this weekend is that right here, that Paris might be selling their spot to eUnited, or there's going to be an announcement on Sunday for expansion for the CDL, or eUnited is joining another esport. But look at some of these. They made a teabags.gg. So automatically teabagging, you think of COD. B, they say tea leaves from Paris. C, they say serving them hot since 2016, which is when they joined COD. And they joined COD in 2016. And then also they have this is the website right here is what it looked like. 100% committed to quality distribution team in LA, which could be a hint as well. And then they even also had creamy, delightful, and light. CDL. Like, dude, come on, man. And if they're coming from Paris, I mean, this feels to me like it's a lock that Paris is selling to eUnited, which is awesome news if that's the case. Although this could be ultimate troll. We've seen crazier things from eUnited before, trolling, and that's what Crone says here. CDL Intel says here, eUnited know how to play the community. I ain't buying anything until it's announced. I was like, absolute facts, but I'll give them what they want, the hype. So if anything, they're getting the publicity right here. So shout out eUnited if they're absolutely playing me. So there's a world where Paris is now eUnited, and that would change up Rostermania, because then there's a world Paris, they don't have the pull. eUnited, they do, and that also comes down to Paris. Paris naturally would rather have an EU team, ironically, a European team. eUnited, ironically, they have the EU name, but eUnited's always been a North American team in COD. So those are all factors to consider when we talk about Rostermania here. Y'all are going crazy on this tweet here, things you love to see. Lots of different options here in the replies so far. And let's switch over to the other capture here so we can check out Rostermania. So spoiler alert, this was our Rostermania predictions on the podcast on Tuesday. So things have changed since then. You can see. So we had Dallas. We had the hot take of Shotzzy leaving Dallas. We believed that Crim and Shotzzy didn't want to play together, but we guessed wrong about which player was going to end up staying. So this is crazy either way, because our thought was that Crim had a way bigger contract and that maybe Shotzzy would be an easier way to get out. But now we know some things. So Shotzzy, Shotzzy is staying on Dallas. That's a lock now. So we got Crim as a free agent. We'll throw him down here. We have Vivid as a free agent. We'll throw him down here. We'll also throw the amateur. We thought they might be picking up an amateur. We didn't really know who it was. Maybe Saints was kind of our guess. So now we have Illy and Shotzi as the duo on Dallas. So now there's a whole bunch of question marks now, and that throws a whole bunch of things for a loop here. Initially, my first thought then would be that Vivid to LA Thieves makes a lot of sense. That's what you guys were saying here in the comments as well. And I agree. That was my first thought. That would make a ton of sense. So that is something to consider. And then, of course, Clay to Dallas now makes a lot more sense. If that's a situation where he wanted to come back during the year and, you know, that was a potential option during the year. And then, of course, you have to think about, okay, what about Hook? What about Hook? Because, I mean, that is a real X factor now for Hook to come back to Dallas from LA Thieves. So that would not be shocking because there's a world where, you know, LAT saw the opportunity to buy. It didn't work out. And the question is, do Shotzi and Illy, do they side with Crim or not? I mean, that's the real question here. And if they do, that means Hook's not returning. If they don't, then I think Hook could return. And then we just see the Dallas Empire of Modern Warfare because they won champs in Modern Warfare. Now we've seen Vanguard. It plays a lot like Modern Warfare. Not at least not as cracked yet at this point, but very similar in a lot of ways. I could see this being the team then. You get the reunion on Dallas, but then that leaves a really weird situation for Hydra on New York all alone there. So Hydra would be a hot commodity though. So then there's a lot of question marks about, okay, would Crim want to go play with Hydra in New York? Does ASIM now stay in New York? So you have a really nice duo, an SMG duo with ASIM and Hydra. And then you send Vivid to LA Thieves. Would Crim really want to come here? I don't know. And so that's a question mark right off the rip. That gets really, really interesting. So the other guy that I would consider maybe a gunless situation, maybe a slasher situation. Those guys could all find their way there. Currently, we have them on LAG. Right now, you're not missing too much here. It's just we have on Paris, we have Pred and 3 other amateurs, and then on London we have the squad of EU, the EU God Squad there, but with Nasty and Harry. But that creates a lot of different situations. Also, with Optic yesterday, I was going to talk about this in the title as well. With Optic yesterday, after their press conference, they were going to do a press conference. Supposedly, it was recorded fairly recently. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like, at least according to that press conference, that they're going to be breaking up. They seemed pretty confident in that they were staying together, because the only weird thing was that Dashi slept through the press conference that they did. So in a world where they're like covering up for Dashi in a situation like that, could be the only way I could see that being a little bit whack. If they were like lying about Dashi, like maybe he's not guaranteed on the squad, but that seems very unlikely. All of them seemed in pretty decent spirits. Scump said he's done talking about Cold War now. He tweeted about that. So that creates for a lot of interesting situations. If I had to guess, I would give it a 70% chance now that Optic stays together, unless something crazy happens. Because now this means that Shotzi, in my head, Shotzi was one of the few players that could go to Optic that would make sense to replace like Envoy with. But now if that means Shotzi's not on the market anymore, he's going to be on Dallas, then that seems pretty dang unlikely. So that throws a lot of loops. My thought is that Vivid does join LA Thieves. I like that roster a lot, and I think that sends ASIM back to New York. The question is, where does Crim go? Does Crim go here? Could it be, would you see a world where they would bench Major Maniac again to send Crim to Rocker and maybe bring a little bit more leadership to that team and a little bit, of that? But they all seemed really happy with Major Maniac, and I'm not sure that move would make them that much better. Major Maniac had some unbelievable plays at Champ, so that seems pretty unlikely that they could make something like that happen, finesse something along those lines. So you would have to bring in a really great flex here to team with those 3. My thought would be maybe it's a gunless Clay, ASIM, a gunless Crim, ASIM, and Hydra situation, or maybe you do Slasher, gunless, depending on what Slasher thinks of gunless at this point, after, at this point with that. Because this puts Crim in a really tough spot, honestly. Because you're like, what does he do from here? Does he go to Seattle and then captain a team on Seattle? I don't know. We still have Sib as an X Factor, so maybe you do Sib and Slasher on a team. Can Sib and Crim work? I feel like I'm forgetting about some drama with Sib and Crim, honestly. That would be my first thought overall. Obviously, some people were trolling with saying Crim going to Optic to replace Formal. Now that would be the spiciest of days of all time. But that is, I mean, at least in theory, a possibility, I guess, but very unlikely. This seems possible to me with Sib. I'm not sure what Sib and Illy's background is together, if they have any connection at all, but this roster right here for New York would make a lot of sense off the rip. So there's a lot of different variables here when talking about this roster. And so then you send Slasher back down here. How do you guys think about this? With Crim going to New York, and then you bring in Sib, Asim, Hydra as a potential roster. I don't know what Sim and Crim's relationship is, so that's would be a question mark for me. The only other situation that I could really see potentially would be if Octane is like, wait a freaking second, I can go and play with Hook or like, you know, Illy and Shotzi, and then maybe try to make something like that happen. And so if Octane can go there, then suddenly now that throws a whole nother wrench in this situation. And then who does, you know, Octane want to play with as their fourth? That would be a crazy team right there too. And I could see that being a thing. So that's like an all talent squad. And I could definitely see that happening. And then in that world, you know, maybe Clay ends up on LA Thieves, or Clay retires, or Clay stays here on New York. And then Crim heads to LA Thieves with Vivid. And then you have like a Crim Kenny Draza situation. That would be possible. But I think I'm going to undo that and probably stick with the original prediction here where we're at right now. But man, Octane going to Dallas could be very possible, and that could be juicy too. And then there's still the debate as to whether Florida and Awakening end up teaming. And so we saw a few tweets from Florida guys. You know, Florida might be in the mix for Rostermania as well. Draza did tweet a gotta regain tweet, but that could have been from COD Champs, so I'm not gonna put too much weight into that. Some of those down bad tweets you gotta consider though. Yeah, those are all possibilities. That would be a wild team right there. I'm not sure, again, with Crim and Sib would be an X factor there about what Crim thinks about Sib. You know, looking down at some of the other free agents down here, there's not an obvious one that stands out that would be there to hop back on with Crim. And then if you have Slasher there, there's not an obvious one there. Zaptius, Methods, Zinni, you know, like that could be a situation like that. Scraps, you know, man, that becomes real spicy real quick. And I think my prediction at this point would be Slasher and Gunless back together on Gorillas, with then Clay ending up on Empire here with 3 younger players and molding those guys instead. But the vibes there with Sib seem questionable, so I'm not exactly sure how that could play out. Then Florida would be the other thing where, like I said, if they're making moves, I'm not convinced that this is their squad then. So then it comes down to Awakening, and then Awakening becomes a big X factor, because if one's gonna stay, it'd be Skies. So then Awakening becomes a huge X factor if they end up leaving. My thought is that they still end up being a squad of 4, but I'm not convinced. That's like a 55% chance of that happening. I would give this about a 40% chance of this happening. I think this trio of 3 with Sib being on New York seems really likely. So I guess that's kind of where we're at right now. There's so many variables. My prediction for Dallas at this point would be Clay, Hook, Illy, and Shotzi, with them reuniting on Empire and running it back with Modern Warfare's type vibes with Clay. But again, is that a high enough upside play to beat FaZe? Maybe. I think it is. And I like the odds of that. And then if Ultra were to break up, if Optic were to break up, that would create a whole nother chain of potential roster manias. I did hear through the grapevines that there was like a chance for some LAG big time team to happen, but it seems like that ended up not happening. So I don't know. It wasn't solid enough information to like really make a video about or anything. So that was kind of the thing there. I'm going to go with this as my prediction. I've been ranting now for the last few minutes. I'm going to go with this as my new prediction. That is definitely going to change by the time we do the podcast on Monday. So be on the lookout. We're definitely going to be talking about some of the other amateur players as well on the pod on Monday and really gassing up those guys. I mean, hey, you know, after what happened yesterday on Twitter, if eUnited is on Paris, then I could see a world where they want to pick up Gunless again. And then you see Gunless rocking and rolling on that team. And then maybe that this squad, and then you have Pristini on that team again. So you're running it back with eUnited. And then you end up having this squad on Paris. And then Pred heads to Seattle. And so it looks something along those lines. You have like a Paul X, Pred, Mohawk, and Mac team. You could also just keep Mac here. And then you have Mac and Crim and Asim and Hydra. And that could be the team. But I think Sib is more likely at this point. So I'm going to go with this type of prediction for Rostermania for right now. We'll just go with a whole bunch of AMs on LAG, and they're the big wild card team right now with what could happen with that roster. So I'm going to predict that eUnited does replace Paris. This could be a really dumb. This could look stupid in like a 48 hours after this video goes up. But there's a lot on the line here for both of these teams. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video ranting about Rostermania. If you guys did, drop a comment down below. And I'll be streaming the Alpha all weekend. So be on twitch.tv SalvationsElite to hang out, watch the Vanguard Alpha, and have a good time with it. It's been fun so far. I've really been enjoying it, and I'll have a video coming out tomorrow about the Vanguard Alpha too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, like, comment, subscribe, share if you guys really enjoyed. As always, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and guys, we will see you next time. I'm out.